The Delhi government has called off implementing the odd and even scheme. The government, which had called for the scheme from November 13th to the 17th, said the decision was taken since the National Green Tribunal had refused to exempt women from it. The government would review its decision after a meeting with the Green Panel on Monday. The Delhi government says the NGT's conditions would put women's safety at risk and burden the public transport. Earlier in the day, the Green Panel gave a conditional nod for the scheme, saying there would be no exemption for two-wheelers, women and government service. It also pulled up the government for failing to act to curb toxic smoke that has thrown normal life out of gear in the capital. Politics over the odd-even scheme continues even as the air quality in Delhi is bad. The situation is so bad that now even the United Airlines has suspended its network to Delhi.
Monday को we are going back to NGT. We are requesting NGT कि वो जो टू व्हीलर्स की एग्जेम्पशन और लेडीज़ की एग्जेम्पशन जो है वो उसको दोबारा कंसिडर करें, क्योंकि इन दोनों कंडीशन के साथ बड़ा मुश्किल होगा हमारे लिए ऑड इवन इम्प्लीमेंट करने का। लेडीज़ की सिक्योरिटी और सेफ्टी का इशू भी है, तो हम हाथ जोड़ के एनजीटी कोर्ट में मंडे को ये रिव्यू एप्लीकेशन फाइल करेंगे एंड एट द मोमेंट ऑड इवन जो है वी आर कॉलिंग इट ऑफ।
महिला सुरक्षा और बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है और जिसके मद्देनजर ये फैसला लिया। इसे दोबारा मंडे को एनजीटी जाके रिक्वेस्ट करेंगे दोबारा।
Well, there you heard, the Delhi government is yet not ready. It has refuted the NGT's conditional requirements, which had exempted the government vehicles and the servants as well as women drivers. They said these exemptions don't work. The plan has to be implemented in totality is what they say. While the Delhi smog continues to increase and people still troubled, trapped inside their houses, preferably using air purifiers and trying to keep themselves alive, the politics seems to be never ending. But remember, the National Green Tribunal has been holding up the Delhi government, saying that they haven't done enough in the past, and why there was an urgency to implement odd and even only when the atmosphere in Delhi is so polluted. Why isn't odd even implemented earlier? Is odd even a solution to the problem that the people in Delhi are facing? The smog continues to keep people inside. Schools remain shut. People have been advised not to step out. In fact, some surveys say that smoking the Delhi air is in fact equivalent to smoking 50 cigarettes a day. That's how badly your lungs are being affected because of the toxic pollutants in the air. Delhi's odd even 3.0 is on hold for now. This comes after the country's Green Court set two preconditions for the odd even fallout. Here's a report.
Just hours after facing blistering criticism from India's top Green Court, Delhi government on Saturday called off the odd-even car rationing scheme it had announced from November 13th till 17th.
Monday को we are going back to NGT. We are requesting NGT कि वो जो टू व्हीलर्स की एग्जेम्पशन और लेडीज़ की एग्जेम्पशन जो है वो उसको दोबारा कंसिडर करें, क्योंकि इन दोनों कंडीशन के साथ बड़ा मुश्किल होगा हमारे लिए ऑड इवन इम्प्लीमेंट करने का। लेडीज़ की सिक्योरिटी और सेफ्टी का इशू भी है, तो हम हाथ जोड़ के एनजीटी कोर्ट में मंडे को ये रिव्यू एप्लीकेशन फाइल करेंगे एंड एट द मोमेंट ऑड इवन जो है वी आर कॉलिंग इट ऑफ।
What Green Tribunal said: no exemption for women, no exemption for VIPs, no exemption for two-wheelers. The most crucial aspect of the third phase of odd-even scheme in Delhi was that it would have been applicable to all. The Green Tribunal made it clear that there would be no exemption this time around. Barring emergency vehicles, everyone, including those on two-wheelers, VIPs and women drivers, would have to come under its ambit. The court also questioned Delhi's government inaction towards the city's pollution menace. Delhi government responded by calling off the scheme itself, saying it could not compromise on women's safety.
महिला सुरक्षा और बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है और जिसके मद्देनजर ये फैसले यही से दोबारा मंडे को एनजीटी जाके रिक्वेस्ट करेंगे दोबारा.
The court's ruling kicked off a new round of political bickering over pollution. Even as Delhi struggles to breathe, the Delhi government has come under attack for its failure in taking steps to reduce pollution. Bureau Report, WION.
Joining us on the special program tonight to discuss more on this is Mr. Raj Panjwani. He's the founder, president of the NGT Bar Association, also senior advocate. Also joining us is Neha Sinha. She's an environmentalist. Thank you, both of you, for coming here on WION. Begin by asking you, Neha, politics over people's problem. This is genuine. The situation is not getting better. Do you think odd and even scheme was a solution at all to the problem we're facing right now?
Not at all. Odd and even was never a solution. It was always just a gimmick. And let us remember that the Aam Aadmi Party came to power promising a bunch of things for Delhi. One was, of course, reducing rates of electricity and water, and the other was taking care of Delhi's environment. And this is a party that has an enormous potential to mobilize people. Unfortunately, we see that mobilization completely missing when it comes to air pollution. As the court has observed, why do we wait for emergency apocalyptic situations before we do anything? And odd and even sounds great. It's been tried in other cities, but that doesn't mean it will work for Delhi, simply because the causes for air pollution are very different. Vehicular pollution is one, but you also have stubble burning. You also have the fact that winter is approaching. You also have the fact that you have so much construction going on in the city at any given point of time. There's dust all over, and you also have, the concrete mixed batches which emit a lot of fly ash. These are all things that not I am saying, but these are things that IIT has said in a report, that there are 4 or 5 major causes of pollution. So we need to crack down on each one of them. And odd and even, just relying on odd and even sounds very much like a political gimmick.
All right, there. Do stay with us, Neha. We're also joined by Raj Panjwani. Mr. Panjwani, do you think the people always have to look up to the judiciary to solve their problems? Earlier there was a firecracker ban and now this.
It's a calamity. It's actually a calamity for which we all are responsible. But the sad part is that something which the executive was expected to have at least given attention to and taken concrete steps for the last 1 year, because for the last 1 year the Green Tribunal has been harping and the throat has gone hoarse, telling them you better take some steps. And it's not that, there are several reports which have been placed, and all those reports surprisingly support the vehicular industry, and they say that the vehicular industry is the least of the problems. And therefore, when we are talking odd and even, I do not understand as to how the vehicles, when all those reports on which the government itself is relying upon, say that the vehicles are the least of the problem, and the solution they come out with is shocking, is that you remove the cars and bring all the two-wheelers on the roads. How do we cope with it? I mean, you just increase the number of two-wheelers, and then as if the pollution is going to come down, because the fact remains that even today at 4 p.m., if you look at the CPCB index, it has crossed 400, the air quality index. So end of the day, the judiciary can't be sitting helpless, because we are talking of the health and life of the citizens. The judiciary is expressing its concern, but end of the day, the politics, whether it is good politics or bad politics, it is there, the wherewithal. But as far as the common citizen is concerned, we all are concerned about our own respective health. And I agree with the lady, she said, who's the other person on the TV, on the show. She rightly said that this politics, whether it is AAP or it is BJP or it is Congress, let's forget about this bickering and find a solution. And if you don't have a solution, then we'll kill this city. Forget about the city surviving or Achhe Din, we'll just kill it.
Absolutely, Mr. Panjwani.
And this is how we catch it.
Absolutely. Do stay with us, both of you. The Delhi government order came soon after the National Green Tribunal's order. Now, The NGT banned exemptions on women, government officials, two-wheelers. The court rapped the Delhi government, saying the exemptions are baseless. Delhi government said it won't implement or even rule without exemption for women, and said it won't compromise on women's safety. Now, in its report on the last round of odd and even that was conducted back in January 2016, the Central Pollution Control Board concluded that with no clear trend and wide fluctuations in the concrete references or inferences of pollutants that were there, weather and emissions from non-vehicular sources were major factors impacting the air quality in Delhi. Neha, if we talk about solutions, we clearly need to stop the blame game. We need a solution. What, apart from the odd and even scheme, could perhaps the Delhi government do otherwise if not coming out with the repeated scheme? For them it might have worked in other cities, as you pointed out. But what does Delhi need at this point in time?
I think Delhi needs to have more of the public getting involved. This is a public health issue. This is a public health emergency. And we need to get down to the level of the RWAs, the resident welfare associations, and just citizen groups. And because the government or the enforcement cannot be everywhere, we need to join hands with the people. For example, if there is a construction coming up in your colony or your neighborhood, which is happening all the time, let's be very clear on that, citizen groups need to report that, and there needs to be action taken on that. I mean, we had supposedly a cracker-free Diwali, but of course there were still violations. So since we cannot expect enforcement to happen everywhere, we need a plan that joins hands with the citizens. So one, we need to really reduce dust from construction and other kinds of noise pollution also that comes from construction, which is happening all over the city. Secondly, we need to engage with the crop burning issue in a much more sensitive and much more sustainable manner. Right now, we know that Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has been talking to Punjab and Haryana, but it's not enough to just talk. We really need to help the farmers get rid of their stubble. It's a little funny, it's a little strange, and actually it's very unjust that Delhi should be blaming farmers who may not be as well off as Delhiites for the stubble burning. We need to give them free of cost equipment, happy seeders, etc., to cut the stubble so that they don't burn it. We also need to look at better road quality, because when you have potholes on the road, you are going to have more dust coming up each time that there are cars. And finally, let us stop selling petrol and diesel until the cars have emissions under control. They need to have the PUC certificate, and it can just be as simple as not getting fuel if your vehicle hasn't been checked. And finally, you have cars coming in, you have trucks coming in from other states. We need to be absolutely corruption-free in terms of checking whether they're bringing an unwanted pollution to the city.
Mr. Panjwani, she's making a very valid point. We need to create an environment for citizens that it is livable. The government clearly needs to step up. But the question really here is, you saw the NGT today, in fact, wrap up the Delhi government saying that get your act together, work well together.
Now, could you, I couldn't catch on because there's some disturbance.
Mr. Panjwani, the bigger...
But what I feel is, after hearing...
please go ahead, please go ahead.
Yeah. What I feel is, all these small steps do have a major impact. But one thing which I really don't understand, why is a public transport system in such miserable condition, shackled by sheer population of the city of Delhi? We can easily have more buses, but every time when the court or the NGT puts the question, where are the buses? You promised about this certain number of buses, let's say 10,000 or 5,000 to begin with. The answer invariably comes back as we don't have parking space. And for that, our government blames the DDA, which is with the center, and that the DDA is creating problems and not giving us land. So with the result, we do not have any public transport system. And if you do not have public transport system, how do you expect people to transport or to commute from one point to another, whether for office or other purposes. So we require, and they had this all these 2 years, 3 years, the debate is going on public transport. They keep on saying that we'll augment this, we'll augment that, and then we'll bring e-rickshaws. Now we'll get rid of the e-rickshaws and get two pedal or two-wheeler e-rickshaws, which are instead of the cycle ones. So we are why can't we just apply our mind in a far more coherent manner and at least mitigate? I know, because I was going through the list, with the entire list which you find on the CPCB board, there's not a single city or a town which falls in a good category. There are just a handful which fall in satisfactory. So when we are looking at the entire gambit, and therefore, but we are in Delhi, therefore we are focused more about Delhi. But what about the surrounding areas? And when we talk about this stubble burning, or the crop, the leftover of the crops as far as Punjab is concerned, it is a part of the so-called green revolution. I am not undermining the positive aspects of green revolution, but with the availability of fertilizer and groundwater, we just don't give enough time between one crop and sowing the next one. Therefore, the only way out is, and with the thrashers, we just take the seeds off and the entire stack is left on the fields, and who's going to remove that? Therefore, the best way is to burn it. Right. Earlier, this never used to happen. And then earlier, we used to give a time gap between one crop and the second crop. And that is also not happening because now we've got fertilizers. We don't even have to wait for the land to rejuvenate. We don't have to wait for the monsoons or the rain as such, the winter rains. And we can straight away put fertilizer, pump groundwater, and within the next 15 days, after a gap of 15 days, after burning this, you start again sowing crop.
Clearly, important solutions you're pointing out there, Mr. Panjwani. These are the suggestions that need to be made to the Delhi government. Clearly, they're struggling to find solutions here. But let's listen in to what the people in Delhi think about this whole fiasco today.
ये जो अभी कारवा करना था नहीं कर रहे हैं, ये तो बहुत गलती कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि देखने में आज 3-4 दिन से बहुत ज़्यादा पोल्यूशन हो रहा है, जिससे बच्चों को स्कूलों में छुट्टी भी मिल गई है. मंडे को ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं, 4-5 दिन की छुट्टी मिली है, तो इसका होना जरूरी है.
ऑड इवन तो अच्छी बात है, मगर ये है कि टेम्पररी साल में 1 हफ्ता आप ऑड इवन चलाएंगे, ये कोई अच्छी वाली बात नहीं है.
इसे अभी इम्प्लीमेंट करनी चाहिए थी. अभी जिस तरह का अभी पॉल्यूशन लेवल बढ़ा हुआ है, उस हिसाब से इसको अभी इंस्टेंट ही इसको लगाना चाहिए था.
So how does the world combat pollution otherwise? Let's take a look at France. Now, there is a ban on vehicles older than 19 years on work days. It imposes an odd-even ban on vehicles. Now, public transport is free during major pollution events. The country has car and bike sharing programs, monthly ban on cars along the Champs-Élysées. Now, for example, looking at another country, Netherlands, it plans to ban the sales of petrol and diesel cars from 2025. It wants to make vehicles on roads fully electric in 10 years. Now, these are major goals. Looking at another developed country, Norway, there will be a complete ban, it says, on petrol cars by 2025. And there's an active, in fact, promotion on electric vehicles there. About 42% of Norway's total car sales are, in fact, electric. Key issues and key developments that we clearly need to learn. Let's look at China now. Now, in China, where air pollution kills nearly 1.1 million people every year, it is making the world's biggest investment in wind and solar power energy, and thousands of coal-fired plants have been shut there. But huge fines have been imposed on those who violate air pollution standards. Then also, looking at another country, or United Kingdom, there's quality assured fuel scheme to recognize standards for fuel. Now, they also have toxicity charge, interestingly, for London's most polluting cars. Clearly, even looking at Mexico for that matter, natural gas will replace fuel oil in industrial use is what they say. Now, stricter vehicle emission standards have also been imposed, and flyover columns have been turned into vertical gardens. Now, there are also frequent orders of all cars to remain idle for a day. And we just heard what the other countries did when their in fact, environment was dealing with crises like ours. You know, Neha, interestingly, the kind of, the way they have tackled their issues, for example, United Kingdom, even Mexico for that matter, what is stopping India from taking these initiatives, trying to increase our, in fact, solar power consumption, perhaps getting rid of the kind of instruments or perhaps vehicles or electricals that we use that cause massive pollution otherwise? Do you think India is ready to adopt new measures and finally get rid of the problems we're facing right now?
I think we were ready to adopt yesterday, but we still haven't done it. And I think that's because we have this chalta hai attitude. The moment the smog is going to lift, if you visibly can't see the smog, I think everybody just forgets, except for the citizens who don't forget. But I think the government seems to have very short-term memory on this. And we can move to solar. We have this whole plan of having much more rooftop solar and many more electric cars. Delhi has been giving out a subsidy on electric cars and bikes for a long time, but the linkages need to be made, and we need to have a coherent plan that says that this is to reduce air pollution. If you say clearly that getting an electric vehicle is to combat air pollution and it is part of your Swachh Bharat Abhiyan or any other kind of language that the common man understands, I'm sure more people would participate. But right now, everything is so disconnected from each other, it doesn't seem to come together coherently. And the biggest thing is we seem to be waiting for the public health emergency to happen. We have no year-round measures to tackle air pollution.
Right.
We wait for Diwali, we wait for the courts to say something, then we say, why is the court curbing down on us like this? We wait for winter and we don't do anything in between, and that is a real problem.
Right. Also, Mr. Panjwani, she's made a very valid point. We always wait for emergencies to happen and then ask the court to step in. She also mentioned when we talk about during the Diwali time, the court had to step in. I'm coming back to my original question here. I mean, is it the role of the judiciary to always step in and solve problems for the people here? Or is the government and collective action of the people not enough to be able to tackle the kind of problems we are facing these days?
Personally speaking, the role of the judiciary is not what it is being made out to be. But the circumstances are so compulsive that the judiciary is left with no option but to step out and protect what we call the right to life of the citizens. Now, when we are talking of environment, definitely it is right to life. And there the judiciary should not, and speaking for myself, should not, and judiciary would not sit back and watch such a massacre of environment which is occurring as of now in the city of Delhi. Therefore, the judiciary has rightly, according to me, has exercised its jurisdiction. But the power of the judiciary is persuasive. We must understand the limitations of the judiciary. The financial powers are not under the judiciary. The execution of the schemes which are there is not under the judiciary. But nevertheless, it has got a major persuasive power because it builds up public opinion. And that is why we have the principle of legitimacy. As long as the judiciary has, in the eyes of the people, has a legitimate interest to protect and preserve and to safeguard the interests of the citizens, then the voice of the judiciary should be heard and should be complied with and not dissented with, like, for example, scrapping the ARP.
Right. Thank you there, Mr. Panjwani. Very valid point. The role of judiciary should be limited. At least the government that has been elected should be able to solve the problem of its people. Thank you both, Neha Sinha and Mr. Raj Panjwani, for joining us on the program and discussing this particular issue. Hope Delhi breathes fine tomorrow, and Delhi should not be breathtaking.